Amelia stood at the kitchen sink, watching rain streak down the window in silver trails. The house was silent, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator. She traced the condensation on her glass of wine, feeling the coldness seep into her fingertips. Her eyes drifted to the digital clock on the stove, 11:42 p.m. Noah was late again. She hated the waiting, the not knowing. It gnawed at her, a relentless whisper in her mind. He used to call if he was working late. He used to come home smelling of office coffee and spreadsheets. Now he came back with the faint scent of perfume that wasn't hers. The front door creaked open, then shut softly. Footsteps padded down the hall. Amelia stiffened, setting her glass down with deliberate care. She schooled her face into neutrality as Noah entered the kitchen, running a hand through his damp hair. He looked exhausted, shadows carving lines beneath his eyes. But when he met her gaze, something flickered. A flash of guilt before his face softened into an apologetic smile. "Hey," he said, voice low. "Sorry, work ran late." She didn't respond right away, instead studying the way he avoided her eyes. "Work's been keeping you late a lot lately." He shrugged, moving past her to the fridge. "New project. Deadlines are a nightmare." Amelia turned to face him, her arms crossed. "You could have called." He hesitated, his fingers tightening on the fridge handle. "I know, I'm sorry. It slipped my mind." Her jaw clenched, but she swallowed the retort that burned at the back of her throat. She'd learned to pick her battles. "I saved you dinner. It's in the microwave." Noah's shoulders sagged, relief evident in his exhale. "Thanks, babe." She watched him heat his food, watched him sit at the kitchen island and eat in silence. It used to be different. They used to share stories about their days, laughing over inside jokes that no one else would understand. But that was before the distance settled between them like an invisible wall. Before the texts she found. Before the lipstick stain she discovered on his collar last month. She wanted to ask him outright, wanted to demand the truth, but she couldn't bring herself to speak the words as if saying them aloud would make it real. So she watched and waited and wondered how long she could pretend. Chapter 2. Pieces of truth. Amelia sat in her car, engine off, fingers gripping the steering wheel. Across the street, sunlight glinted off the glass doors of Verity Cafe. She'd followed him there, her heart thundering the whole way. She hated herself for it, for becoming this person, suspicious, paranoid, desperate for answers. But she needed to know. Noah walked out of the cafe, a smile on his face that she hadn't seen in months. The woman beside him laughed, her head tilting towards him, her hand brushing his arm. She was beautiful, long, dark hair cascading over her shoulders. Red lipstick that matched the stain Amelia had found. Amelia's stomach twisted, nausea rising like bile. She watched them walk to a silver sedan, watched Noah open the passenger door for her before moving to the driver's side. It was such a small, gentlemanly gesture, one he hadn't done for Amelia since before their first anniversary. The sedan pulled away, leaving Amelia gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. She stayed there, staring at the empty parking space, until the sun sank below the horizon. Chapter 3. Confrontation. Amelia's hands trembled as she poured herself another glass of wine. She didn't look up when she heard the door open, didn't move as Noah walked into the living room, shaking rain off his coat. He stopped short when he saw her on the couch, her face illuminated by the glow of the lamp. "Amelia, you're still up?" She took a sip of wine, savoring the burn down her throat. "Where were you?" Noah's shoulders tensed. "I told you, work's been crazy." She laughed, a hollow sound that echoed off the walls. "Are you going to keep lying to me?" His face paled. "What are you talking about?" Amelia set her glass down, finally meeting his eyes. "I saw you. At Verity Cafe, with her. For a moment, his expression was blank. Shock, denial, panic, flashing across his face before he schooled his features into a mask of calm. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. Her voice cracked, anger and hurt tangling together. Tell me why you smell like another woman's. Perfume! Why you can't even look me in the eye anymore! Noah looked away, his jaw clenched. It's complicated. She stood, her hands balled into fists. No, it's not. It's simple. You're cheating on me. Silence hung heavy between them, his refusal to deny it twisting the knife in her chest. How long? She whispered, tears stinging her eyes. How long have you been lying to me? Noah sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. 6 months. The admission stole the breath from her lungs. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of him coming home late with excuses she swallowed because she trusted him, because she loved him. The days blurred together, a monotonous cycle of waking, existing, and trying to breathe through the pain. Amelia moved through the house like a ghost, her body on autopilot while her mind replayed his confession over and over. 6 months. 6 months of lies, of sharing her husband with someone else without even knowing it. She couldn't sleep in their bed, not when the scent of him clung to the sheets, a cruel reminder of the man she thought she knew. She spent her nights on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that did little to shield her from the cold ache in her chest. Noah tried to give her space, sleeping in the guest room without argument, his presence a haunting echo in the hallway. He still went to work every day, but he came home earlier now, his attempts at reconciliation awkward and stilted. He left notes on the kitchen counter. I made coffee. I'm sorry. I miss you. Words that felt empty against the enormity of his betrayal. Amelia read each one before crumpling them up and throwing them away. She didn't want his apologies. She wanted the truth. Chapter 5. Broken promises. It was raining again when she finally made the call. Amelia watched water streak down the windows as the phone rang, her heart pounding in her chest. Hey, Mel. It's been a while. Olivia's voice was warm, familiar. It made Amelia's eyes burn with unshed. Tears. Liv, she choked out, her voice trembling. I need you. There was a pause, then Olivia's voice softened. I'll be there in 20. True to her word, Olivia showed up with takeout and a bottle of wine. They sat on the couch, Chinese food containers strewn across the coffee table. Olivia didn't ask questions, just poured them both generous glasses of red and waited. Amelia stared into her wine, her fingers trembling as she lifted the glass to her lips. Noah's been having an affair. Olivia's face fell, shock and anger flashing across her features. That bastard. When did you find out? Last week, I confronted him. He admitted to everything. Her voice cracked, the words tasting bitter on her tongue. 6 months? He was lying to me for 6 months? Olivia set her glass down, her hands balling into fists. Do you know who she is? Amelia's jaw tightened. Vanessa. She works with him. She swallowed, fighting, the urge to scream. I followed him, Liv. I watched him smile at her like he used to smile at me. Olivia's eyes softened, her shoulders slumping. Oh, Mel. She pulled Amelia into a tight hug, her warmth soothing the ache that had taken root in Amelia's chest. I'm so sorry. They sat like that for a while, Amelia crying quietly into Olivia's shoulder, the weight of betrayal pressing down on her until she could barely breathe. When she finally pulled away, she wiped her eyes, shame curling in her gut. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to move forward from this. Olivia's gaze hardened. You don't have to forgive him. You don't owe him that. Amelia looked away, guilt twisting inside her. But I still love him, and that makes me hate myself even more. Olivia's expression softened. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. She hesitated before asking, "Are you going to try to fix things?" Amelia stared at the half-empty glass of wine, her heart heavy. "I don't know if there's anything left to fix." Chapter 6. Threads. Unraveling. A week passed before she asked the question that had been haunting her since the night of his confession. Noah was in the kitchen, making breakfast, his shoulders tense as he moved around the room. He looked up when she entered, his eyes widening in surprise. She hadn't spoken more than a few words to him all week. "I want to know everything." Her voice was steady, her gaze unyielding. "No more lies, no more half-truths. I deserve the whole story." Noah's face paled, his hands tightening on the edge of the counter. "Amelia, don't you dare tell me you're trying to protect me," she snapped, her eyes flashing. "You lost that right the moment you betrayed me." His shoulders slumped, the fight leaving him. "You're right. You deserve the truth." He sank into a chair, his face drawn and tired. "It started at the office holiday party. I was drunk, and she came on to me. I didn't stop it." He looked down, shame written across his features. "After that, it just kept happening. I knew it was wrong, but I was selfish. I liked the way she looked at me like I was the center of her world." Amelia's stomach churned, bile rising in her throat. "Did you love her?" Noah's head snapped up, panic flaring in his eyes. "No, God, no! It was never about love. It was about feeling wanted, feeling alive." She laughed, a bitter sound that made him flinch. "So what? I wasn't enough? Our life wasn't enough?" "No, that's not it," he said, his voice cracking. "I lost myself somewhere along the way. I felt like I was drowning and she was an escape." He looked at her, desperation in his eyes. "I never stopped loving you, Amelia, not for a second." Days turned into weeks, the space between them filled with tense silences and halting conversations. Amelia drifted through the house like a shadow, haunted by memories of what they once were and the cruel reality of what they had become. Noah tried to reach her, his attempts clumsy and riddled with guilt. He left flowers on the kitchen counter, notes that went unread, and cooked dinners that grew cold and untouched. He moved through the motions of a man desperate to fix the unfixable, but nothing he did could erase the images burned into her mind. Him, with Vanessa, sharing smiles that used to belong to her. Amelia's anger simmered beneath the surface, sharp and volatile. It flared at unexpected moments, triggered by his voice, his touch, the smallest reminders of his betrayal. She lashed out, her words weapons meant to hurt, to make him feel even a fraction of the pain he had caused her. And Noah took it all without complaint. His shoulders bowed under the weight of his own remorse. But anger was exhausting, and even rage eventually burned itself out. What replaced it was a hollow emptiness, a numbness that made Amelia feel like she was drowning. She began avoiding him, retreating to the bedroom as soon as she heard his car pull into the driveway. She stopped answering his questions, her silence heavy and punishing. When she couldn't avoid him, she kept their conversations short and impersonal, careful to never give him a glimpse of the emotions roiling inside her. Because showing him how much she was hurting meant giving him power over her again, and she couldn't survive another betrayal. Chapter 8. The ghost of her Amelia couldn't stop herself from searching for Vanessa online. It was a compulsion, a dark curiosity that she couldn't shake. She stared at photos of the woman who had stolen her husband, scrutinizing every detail. The perfectly styled hair, the bright smile, the way her eyes sparkled with confidence. She hated her, and she hated herself even more for caring. One night, She found herself driving to the office where Noah worked. She parked across the street, her heart pounding as she watched the building, half hoping to catch a glimpse of Vanessa, half dreading what she might see. When Vanessa finally emerged, Amelia's stomach twisted into knots. She was even more beautiful. In person, tall and graceful with a laugh that seemed to echo across the parking lot. She looked so normal, so happy, as if she hadn't destroyed someone's marriage, as if she hadn't stolen Amelia's world out from under her. Amelia gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. She wanted to confront her, to scream and demand to know why. What did Vanessa have that she didn't? Why wasn't she enough? But she stayed in the car, frozen in place by fear and shame. When Vanessa drove away, Amelia sank back into her seat, tears streaming down her face. She felt pathetic, small, like a shadow of the woman she used to be. How had she let it come to this? Chapter 9. Echoes of Deception. Noah was waiting for her when she got home, his face pale with worry. "Where were you?" His voice was tight, anxious. "I was worried." Amelia brushed past him, her shoulders rigid. "I went for a drive." "In the middle of the night?" "I needed to clear my head," she snapped, her voice colder than she intended. Noah flinched but didn't push. He never did anymore. He was too afraid of pushing her further away, but his silence only made her angrier. She wanted him to fight back, to argue, to show even a sliver of the man she had fallen in love with. Instead, he retreated, his shoulders slumping as he turned away. Watching him walk away felt like losing him all over again. Chapter 10. Confrontation. It happened by accident. Amelia was at the grocery store when she saw Vanessa, standing in the produce aisle laughing with a friend. She looked so normal, so unaffected, like she wasn't the reason Amelia's life was falling apart. Amelia's vision blurred, anger, flooding her senses. Before she could think, she was walking towards her, her pulse pounding in her ears. Vanessa looked up just as Amelia stopped in front of her, her eyes widening in surprise. "Amelia?" The sound of her name on Vanessa's lips was a slap to the face. She felt a rush of cold fury, her hands trembling at her sides. "You knew he was married." Her voice was low, dangerous. "You knew, and you did it anyway." Vanessa's face went pale, guilt flashing across her features. I'm so sorry. I never meant to." "Save it," Amelia spat, her eyes blazing. "You don't get to play the victim. You knew exactly what you were doing." Her voice wavered, emotion breaking through her anger. "You ruined my life. Do you even care?" Vanessa's eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling. "I never wanted to hurt you. I thought he was going to leave you." Amelia felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. "Leave me?" The words were sour on her tongue. "He never said that." Vanessa looked away, shame coloring her cheeks. Amelia drove home in a daze, Vanessa's words echoing in her mind. "He told me he was unhappy, that your marriage was falling apart." It felt like a betrayal within a betrayal. Not only had Noah cheated, but he had rewritten their history, turned their life into a lie to justify his actions. She gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, fighting the urge to scream. When she got home, Noah was waiting for her, his face lighting up with relief. "I was getting worried. You didn't answer my calls." Amelia looked at him, really looked at him, and felt a wave of revulsion. How could she have loved someone capable of such deception? How could she have trusted him with her heart? "I saw her," she said, her voice cold and steady. "I saw Vanessa." Noah's face went pale, his eyes widening. "Amelia, She told me everything." She cut him off, her voice sharp as glass. "She told me what you said about me, about us." Her lips trembled, but she held her ground. You told her you were unhappy, that our marriage was falling apart. Were you lying to her too? Or was that the truth? Noah's shoulders slumped, shame clouding his features. I was confused, lost. I was selfish, Amelia. I was trying to justify what I was doing, to make myself feel less guilty. So you lied. Her voice was flat, emotionless. You lied to her, and you lied to me. He looked down, his hands shaking. I never stopped loving you. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. Her voice cracked, the pain breaking through. You didn't just cheat, Noah. You betrayed me. You made me doubt everything we had, everything we were. She wiped at her tears angrily. I look at you, and all I see is a stranger. Noah took a step toward her, his eyes pleading. I'm still me, Amelia. I'm still the man who loves you, who wants to make this right. She backed away, shaking her head. No. You're the man who destroyed us. You're the man who lied. To me and to her. Her voice grew cold. You turned me into a fool. Noah's face crumbled, guilt and regret etched into every line. I'll do anything, Amelia. I'll go to therapy. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Just don't give up on us. She looked at him, her heart breaking all over again. You already gave up on us, Noah. The day you chose her over me. She turned away, her shoulders shaking as she fought to hold herself together. I don't know how to forgive you. I don't even know if I want to. He stood there, helpless, as she walked away, her footsteps echoing through the empty house. Chapter 12. Fractured Echoes. Amelia spent the next few days in a fog, going through the motions of life without really living. She avoided Noah as much as possible, leaving the room whenever he entered, keeping their conversations brief and impersonal. She knew he was trying. He made dinner every night, left notes apologizing, and gave her space when she needed it. But his efforts felt hollow, meaningless. No amount of gestures could erase the betrayal, the lies. She threw herself into work, staying late at the office, just to avoid going home. But even then, she couldn't escape the thoughts that haunted her. She kept hearing Vanessa's voice, seeing Noah's face twisted with guilt. Her co-workers noticed her distraction, her distant stares, but she brushed off their concern with fake smiles and hollow reassurances. She didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to share her pain. It was too raw, too personal. One evening, as she was leaving the office, she ran into Mark, a colleague who had always been kind to her. He smiled, his eyes warm. Working late again? You're going to burn yourself out. Amelia forced a laugh. Yeah, I guess I've been a bit of a workaholic lately. Mark hesitated, his expression softening. Hey, if you ever need someone to talk to, or even just a distraction, I'm here. His kindness made her throat tighten, a lump forming that she couldn't swallow. Thanks, Mark. That means a lot. For a moment, she was tempted to confide in him, to share the burden that was suffocating her. But she held back, unwilling to let anyone see how broken she really was. Instead, she offered him a strained smile and walked away, the weight of her secrets heavy on her shoulders. Chapter 13. Unspoken Truths. That night, Amelia dreamed of Vanessa. She saw her laughing, happy, her arms wrapped around Noah. She saw the way he looked at her, his eyes soft, his smile tender. Amelia woke with tears on her cheeks, her heart aching with jealousy and pain. She felt pathetic, hating herself for still caring, for still loving him. When she went downstairs, she found Noah asleep on the couch, his face drawn and tired. He looked older, worn down by his own guilt and regret. For a moment she felt a pang of sympathy, a flicker of the love she used to feel. But it was quickly buried beneath a wave of anger. He had no right to look broken. He was the one who had broken her. She turned away, her heart heavy. She didn't know how to move forward. The days bled into weeks, and the house felt like a prison. Amelia couldn't escape the memories, the echoes of laughter and love that now felt tainted, hollow. Noah continued to try, his gestures small but persistent. He'd leave her coffee. In the morning, her favorite blend, just the way she liked it. He'd clean the house, do the laundry, and cook dinner every night, waiting for her to join him, though she never did. She hated how he made it harder to stay angry, how his remorse was so palpable, so real. She wanted to scream at him, to hurt him the way he had hurt her, but she didn't know how. One evening, Amelia stood outside the bedroom door, listening to Noah's muffled voice as he spoke on the phone. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but the way he whispered made her freeze, a chill running down her spine. "No, I haven't told her. I don't think she could handle it right now." "Yeah, I miss you too, but I can't lose her. Not like this." Amelia's blood ran cold. Her heart thudded painfully against her ribs, each beat a knife twisting in her chest. He's still talking to her. She backed away, her vision blurring as tears burned her eyes. All his apologies, his pleas for forgiveness, they were just more lies. He was still choosing her. She left the house without a word, her legs carrying her blindly down the street, her mind spinning with betrayal and rage. How could he do this? Chapter 15. Truth unraveled, Amelia drove to Vanessa's apartment, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. She didn't care how desperate or pathetic it made her look. She needed answers. She needed the truth. When Vanessa opened the door, her eyes widened in shock. "Amelia, what are you doing?" "Here?" Amelia pushed past her, storming into the apartment without invitation. "You're still talking to him." Her voice was icy, brittle. "You're still seeing my husband." Vanessa's face fell, guilt flickering in her eyes. "No, I mean, not like that. I haven't seen him since that day at the cafe." "Don't lie to me." Amelia's voice broke, the pain raw and exposed. "I heard him on the phone. He told you he missed you, that he couldn't lose you." Vanessa's face paled. She sank onto the couch, her shoulders slumping. I didn't want to hurt you. I never wanted any of this." "But you did," Amelia whispered, her voice trembling. "You did hurt me. You ruined my life." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. He told me you didn't love him anymore, that you were just staying together out of obligation." Amelia's jaw clenched, her nails digging into her palms. "He lied to you, just like he lied to me." She took a shaky breath, fighting to keep her composure. "Is he still in love with you?" Vanessa looked away, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know. He said he was confused, that he didn't want to lose you." She hesitated, guilt shadowing her face. "He said he was going to fight for your marriage. That he was going to choose you." Amelia felt like the floor was crumbling beneath her. "Then why is he still talking to you?" Vanessa's shoulders shook as she sobbed. "Because he doesn't know how to let go." Amelia stood there, frozen, her world shattering all over again. Chapter 16. Breaking point. Amelia confronted Noah as soon as she got home, her anger sharp and cold. "You lied to me. You said it was over, but you're still talking to her." Noah's face fell, his eyes wide with guilt. "Amelia, I was trying to end things the right way. I didn't want to hurt her more than I already had. You were protecting her? Amelia's voice was dangerously low, her eyes blazing. After everything she did, after everything you did, you're still protecting her? Noah's shoulders slumped. I never stopped loving you, Amelia. I'm trying to fix this. To fix us. But you can't, she shouted, her voice cracking. You can't fix this because you broke it. You broke me. Tears streamed down her face, her pain raw and exposed. You chose her. Even now. You're still choosing her. Noah's face crumbled, his own tears falling. I'm choosing you, Amelia. I'm here, aren't I? I want to make this right. I want to earn back your trust. She shook her head, her heart breaking. I don't trust you. I don't even know who you are anymore. He took a step toward her, his eyes pleading. I'm still me. I'm still the man who loves you, who wants to spend his life with you. Amelia backed away, shaking her head. No, you're not. You're just a liar, a coward who couldn't even end his affair properly. Her voice hardened, her pain turning to anger. You don't deserve me. You don't deserve my forgiveness. Noah's face fell, his hope shattered. Amelia, please. She turned away, her shoulders shaking. I don't know if I can ever forgive you. I don't know if I even want to. She walked upstairs, her heart heavy with pain and betrayal, leaving Noah standing alone, his world falling apart. End of Part 5. Days turned into nights, with an unbearable heaviness that clung to every corner of the house. The silence was suffocating. Conversations were reduced to brief exchanges about bills, groceries, and other necessities, spoken in cold, distant tones. Amelia moved through her days like a ghost, her thoughts circling endlessly around the betrayal, the lies, and the lingering question she couldn't escape. Could she ever forgive him? She kept replaying Noah's words, his pleas for another chance, but every time she looked at him, she saw the man who had broken her heart, who had shared his love, his body, his secrets with someone else. Noah tried to give her space, tried to be patient. But the waiting was agony. Each day that passed without her forgiveness felt like another nail sealing the coffin of their marriage. He stayed up late at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how he had let things get this far, how he had destroyed the one thing he never thought he could lose. One evening, as they sat at opposite ends of the dinner table, Amelia finally broke the silence. Why did you keep talking to her? Her voice was quiet, but her eyes were sharp, unrelenting. If you wanted to fix things, if you wanted us to work, why did you keep her in your life? Noah's shoulders sagged, his face etched with regret. I was selfish. I didn't know how to let go, how to stop hurting people I cared about. You cared about her? Amelia's voice wavered, a bitter edge cutting through. Noah looked away, shame coloring his face. I thought I did, but it wasn't real. It was an escape. A fantasy I used to run away from the problems I didn't know how to face. He looked up, his eyes pleading. But I was wrong, Amelia. You were always the one I loved, the one I wanted. She felt her heart twist painfully, wanting so desperately to believe him, to find a way back to what they once were. But trust was shattered glass, and she couldn't see how to piece it back together. How do I believe you? She whispered, her voice breaking. How do I know you won't hurt me again? Noah's eyes filled with tears. I don't know. I don't know how to prove it to you, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying if you'll let me. Amelia's vision blurred as tears welled up, her emotions tangled and raw. I don't even know if I want to try. I don't know if I can. The words hung heavy in the air, a brutal honesty that cut through them both. Noah's face crumbled, his shoulders shaking. I deserve that. I deserve whatever you decide. His voice was choked with pain. But I don't want to lose you. Not like this. Not because of my mistakes. Amelia stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. I can't do this right now. Her voice was a whisper, fragile and broken. I need time, space, to figure out if I can ever forgive you. Noah watched her walk away, his heart breaking all over again. He wanted to call after her, to beg her not to give up on them. But he knew he had no right to ask for that, not after everything he had done. He was losing her, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Chapter 18. Confessions and Consequences. Amelia drove to her sister's house, the only place she felt she could breathe. Emily opened the door, her face softening with sympathy as she pulled Amelia into a tight hug. I'm sorry, Emily whispered, her voice full of pain. I can't believe he did this to you. Amelia let herself cry, her tears soaking into Emily's shoulder. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to feel. Emily led her to the couch, handing her a box of tissues. You don't have to decide anything right now. You don't owe him anything. Amelia looked down, her hands trembling. I hate him, but I still love him. I feel like an idiot for even considering forgiving him. You're not an idiot, Emily said firmly. You're human. You loved him for years. That doesn't just go away because he messed up. Her expression hardened. But that doesn't mean you have to forgive him either. Amelia wiped her eyes, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. How do I even begin to trust him again? How do I know he won't hurt me all over again? Emily hesitated, her face conflicted. You don't. That's the hardest part. You have to decide if he's worth the risk. If your marriage is worth fighting for. Amelia's chest tightened, her heart aching with indecision. I don't know if I'm strong enough. Emily took her hands, squeezing them tightly. You're the strongest person I know. Whatever you decide, I'll be here for you. Amelia leaned her head against her sister's shoulder, grateful for her support but no closer to finding the answers she needed. Chapter 19. Crossroads. Amelia returned home late, exhausted and emotionally drained. Noah was waiting for her in the living room, his eyes red from crying. He stood as she entered, his voice trembling. I thought you weren't coming back. Amelia looked at him, her face unreadable. I almost didn't. She hesitated, her heart aching. Days turned into weeks, and the tension in the house became almost unbearable. Amelia and Noah moved around each other like strangers, careful not to touch, not to speak more than necessary. They were living together but worlds apart, their marriage hanging by a thread. Amelia threw herself into her work, staying late at the office just to avoid coming home. The silence in their house was too loud, echoing with the broken promises and painful memories she couldn't escape. She found herself replaying conversations, dissecting every word, every lie, wondering how she could have been so blind. One evening, as she was about to leave the office, she noticed a missed call from an unknown number. Her heart skipped, anxiety prickling at the back of her neck. It was the third time that week. She hesitated, then dialed back, her fingers trembling. A woman answered, her voice cold and detached. Amelia Rivers? Yes. Who is this? There was a pause, followed by a soft sigh. I thought you should know. He's been lying to you. He never stopped seeing her. Amelia's heart froze. Who is this? She demanded, her voice sharp. The woman's tone grew bitter. I'm just someone who thought you deserved the truth. Check his phone records. Look at his messages. He's still in contact with her. The line went dead before Amelia could respond, leaving her standing there, her heart racing, her mind spinning. She wanted to dismiss it, to write it off as some cruel joke, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Noah had promised her he'd cut all ties. He'd sworn he was done with Lena. But had he lied again? On the drive home, Amelia's mind was a chaotic mess, anger and fear battling for control. She felt like she was falling all over again, like the ground was crumbling beneath her feet. When she walked through the door, Noah looked up from the couch, his face lighting up with a hesitant smile. "Hey, I didn't think you'd be home this early." Amelia stared at him, her chest tightening. She wanted to believe him, to trust him, but the doubts were suffocating her. "I got off early," she said, her voice strained. I need to ask you something." Noah's smile faded, his expression wary. "What is it?" Amelia hesitated, her throat tightening. "Have you talked to her since everything happened?" Noah's face went pale, his body tensing. "No. I told you I ended it. I haven't spoken to her since." Amelia felt her heart crack, his lie ringing in her ears. She saw it in his eyes, the way they shifted just slightly, the way his shoulders stiffened. She knew him too well to miss it. "Are you sure?" Her voice wavered, her heart pounding. "Because if you're lying to me again, if you're still hiding things from me, then we're done, Noah. I can't go through this again." Noah's eyes widened, panic flashing across his face. "Amelia! I swear! I'm not lying. I haven't seen her. I haven't talked to her." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust him. But the doubt was there, lodged deep in her heart, and it wouldn't let go. Amelia turned away, her eyes burning. "I can't do this right now," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I need to clear my head." Noah watched her walk out, his chest tightening with fear. He had told her the truth. Mostly. He hadn't seen Lena, but he had responded to a few of her messages. Short, simple replies, trying to keep things civil, to end things without more drama. But he hadn't told Amelia because he knew she wouldn't understand. He sank onto the couch, his hands trembling. He was losing her, and it was his own damn fault. Chapter 21. Unraveling threads. Amelia drove aimlessly, her mind racing, her heart aching. The woman's words echoed in her ears, and she felt sick, anger and fear twisting inside her. She had trusted him again. She had given him a chance. Had he betrayed her all over again? She parked by the lake, staring out at the dark water, her vision blurred with tears. She felt so lost, so broken. She didn't know who to trust anymore, not even herself. Her phone buzzed, and she looked down to see a message from Emily. "Hey, just checking in. Are you okay?" Amelia hesitated, her fingers hovering over the screen. She needed someone to talk to, someone who would understand. She texted back, "No. Can I come over?" "Of course. I'll put on some tea." Amelia's hands were shaking as she drove to her sister's house. She felt like she was falling apart, like her heart was shattering all over again. When Emily opened the door, Amelia broke down, her tears spilling over. Emily pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly. "Oh, Mia, what happened?" Amelia sobbed, her shoulders shaking. I think he lied to me again." Her voice was choked with pain. "I think he never stopped seeing her." Emily's face darkened, her arms tightening around Amelia. "That bastard, after everything he put you through?" Amelia nodded, wiping her eyes. "I don't know what to do. I don't know how to believe him." Amelia sat in her car outside their house, her fingers gripping the steering wheel. Her chest was tight, her heart racing. She had rehearsed the conversation 100 times in her mind, but the words felt heavy, tangled on her tongue. She watched. The house. Its windows dark, its walls holding too many secrets. She remembered how safe she used to feel here, how happy they once were. Now it was just a reminder of everything she had lost. Taking a deep breath, Amelia stepped out of the car and walked up the steps, her feet heavy, her heart pounding. She unlocked the door and found Noah in the kitchen, his back to her as he washed dishes. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "Amelia, you're home." She didn't respond, her eyes cold, her shoulders rigid. "We need to talk." Her voice was low, controlled, but laced with pain. Noah turned off the faucet, his body tensing. He could feel the anger radiating off her. "What's wrong?" Amelia walked into the kitchen, her arms crossed. "I got a phone call today from a woman who said you're still seeing her." Noah's face went pale, his eyes widening. "What? That's not true. I haven't seen Lena since you lied to me? Since you swore you ended it?" Her voice cracked, her anger slipping through. "She told me to check your phone records, to look at your messages. Do I need to?" Noah's mouth opened and closed, his face paling. "Amelia, I didn't—" "Don't lie to me," she snapped, her voice sharp. "I've had enough of your lies. I need to hear the truth, Noah. Have you been in contact with her?" Noah looked away, his shoulders sagging. I didn't see her. I didn't meet with her. But she did reach out. She texted me a few times. I didn't want to cause more problems. So I responded. I told her to leave me alone." Amelia's chest tightened, her nails digging into her arms. "You told me it was over. You promised me. And you were still talking to her?" "It wasn't like that," Noah insisted, his voice pleading. "I wasn't hiding anything. I just didn't want to hurt you again. I was trying to end it, to keep things civil." Amelia let out a bitter laugh, her eyes filling with tears. "You were trying to protect me? By lying to me again?" Her voice broke, her pain spilling out. "Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? How stupid I feel for trusting you again?" Noah reached for her, his face twisted with guilt. "Amelia, please. I never meant to hurt you. I was trying to fix things. I didn't want to lose you." She pulled away, her eyes burning. "You already lost me, Noah. Every time you lied to me, every time you chose her over me, you lost me a little more." Noah's face crumpled, his eyes filled with desperation. "I love you, Amelia. I made a mistake, but I never stopped loving you." Amelia shook her head, her tears falling. "Love isn't supposed to feel like this. It isn't supposed to hurt this much." She turned away, her shoulders shaking. "I can't do this anymore. I can't keep waiting for the next lie, the next betrayal. It's killing me." Noah's face went pale, his eyes widening. Are you saying it's over?" Amelia closed her eyes, her heart shattering. She wanted to forgive him. She wanted to believe him. But she was too broken, too tired of hurting. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again." Her voice was a whisper, raw and broken. "And without trust, what do we have left?" Noah sank to his knees, his shoulders trembling. "Amelia, please, don't leave me. I can't lose you. I'll do anything. I'll make it right. Just don't give up on us." Amelia looked at him, her heart aching. She could see his pain, his regret, his love. But she didn't know if it was enough. She didn't know if she could ever let him back in. She turned away, her voice hollow. "I need time to figure out what's left of us." Noah watched her walk away, his world crumbling. He wanted to run after her, to hold her, to beg for another chance. But he knew he was the one who broke them. He was the one who shattered their love, and he didn't know if he could ever put the pieces back together. Chapter 23. Crossroads. Amelia sat alone in the guest room, her knees drawn to her chest, her heart aching. She stared at the wall, her mind replaying their argument, his lies, his pleas. She wanted to hate him, to be angry, to walk away and never look back. But she couldn't. She still loved him, even after everything he'd done. And that was the hardest part. She felt trapped, torn, between the love they once shared and the pain of his betrayal. She didn't know how to move forward. She didn't know if she could ever forgive him. Her phone buzzed, breaking through her thoughts. It was a text from Emily. "Are you okay? Do you need me to come over?" Amelia's chest tightened, her eyes filling with tears. She didn't know how to answer. She didn't know how to explain the emptiness inside her. She typed back, "I don't know what to do. I don't know how to trust him again." Noah stood outside the guest room door, his hand hovering just above the wood. He could hear Amelia's muffled sobs, the sound piercing through him. Every tear she shed was his fault. Every broken piece of her heart was because of his choices. He wanted to knock, to beg for forgiveness, to promise he would fix everything. But the words felt empty, meaningless after all the lies. He didn't deserve her forgiveness. He didn't deserve her at all. His fingers grazed the door before he pulled back, his shoulders slumping. How could he ask her to believe him when he no longer believed in himself? He turned away, his heart heavy, and retreated to their bedroom. The bed felt cold, the silence deafening. Everything reminded him of her scent still lingering on the pillow, her books stacked on the nightstand. Ghosts of memories haunted him, mocking him with visions of happier days. He sank onto the bed, his face buried in his hands. He had everything: a loving wife, a beautiful home, a life he never thought he'd have. And he threw it all away for a fleeting temptation. The truth was bitter, heavy, suffocating. He was the villain in his own story, the one who destroyed everything he loved. But he wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. Not when there was still a chance, no matter how small, to make things right. Noah reached for his phone, his hands shaking as he typed out a message. "I'm so sorry, Amelia. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn it. Please, don't give up on us." He hit send, his chest tightening as the message disappeared into the void. Would she even read it? Would she even care? He didn't know. And that terrified him. Chapter 25. The Lie Beneath. Amelia read Noah's message, her heart aching. His words were desperate, pleading, but they did nothing to ease her pain. She turned off her phone and closed her eyes, exhaustion washing over her. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to forgive him. But the betrayal was too deep, the wound too raw. A knock on the door startled her, and she looked up to find Emily standing there, concern etched on her face. "I came as soon as I could." Amelia managed a weak smile. "I didn't know who else to call." Emily crossed the room and hugged her, her embrace warm and comforting. "I'm glad you did. You shouldn't have to go through this alone." They sat on the bed, the silence heavy. Amelia leaned against Emily, her shoulders trembling. "I don't know what to do, Em. I feel so lost." Emily rubbed her back, her voice soft. "You don't have to decide anything right now. Just take it one day at a time." Amelia's eyes filled with tears. "I hate him. I hate what he did to us. To me. But I still love him, and that makes me hate myself." Emily's face softened. "Loving someone who hurt you doesn't make you weak, Amelia. It makes you human." Amelia's tears fell, her pain spilling out. "I don't know if I can ever trust him again. I don't know if I can ever look at him the same way." Emily held her tighter. "Then don't force yourself to. Give yourself time to heal, to figure out what you really want. Whatever you decide, I'll be here for you." Amelia closed her eyes, her heart aching. She wanted to believe it was that simple. But nothing about this was simple. Nothing about this was fair. Chapter 26. Unraveling threads. The next morning, Noah sat at the kitchen table staring at his untouched cup of coffee. Sleep had eluded him, guilt gnawing at his insides. He replayed every mistake, every lie, every choice that led him here. He needed to do more than apologize. He needed to prove he was willing to change, to fight for their marriage. But how could he fight when she wouldn't even look at him? His phone buzzed and he hesitated before picking it up. It was a text from Lena. "I'm sorry about everything. I never meant to ruin your life. If you ever need to talk, I'm here." Noah's jaw clenched, anger flaring. She was the last person he wanted to hear from. He deleted the message without replying, his fingers trembling. Why couldn't she just leave him alone? His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps, and he looked up to see Amelia standing in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes red and swollen. His heart sank, guilt tightening around his chest. "Amelia." She held up a hand, her expression cold. "I don't want to hear your excuses. I just need answers. And I need you to be honest with me for once." Noah's shoulders sagged, his voice low. "You deserve the truth. Ask me anything. I won't hide anything from you again." Amelia's eyes flashed with pain. "Why did you do it? Why did you betray me?" Noah looked away, shame flooding him. "I was selfish. I was stupid. I took you for granted and I let my insecurities get the best of me. But it was never about her. It was never love. Just a mistake that I'll regret for the rest of my life." Amelia's voice shook. "Do you still love her?" Noah's eyes widened. "No, I never did. It was just an escape." Amelia sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes fixed on the wedding photo on the dresser. They looked so happy, so in love. She remembered that day vividly, the laughter, the promises, the hope. It all felt like a cruel joke now, a lie wrapped in white lace and golden vows. How could she have been so blind? How could she have trusted him so completely, only to be shattered by his betrayal? Her phone buzzed, a new message from Emily. "Thinking of you. If you need to get away, my place is always open." Amelia's fingers hovered over the screen, tempted to pack a bag and leave, to escape the house that felt like a prison. But where would she go? No matter how far she ran, the pain would follow. She leaned back, her eyes heavy. Sleep was a distant memory, and exhaustion clung to her like a second skin. Her mind replayed Noah's confession, his voice trembling with regret. But were his tears real, or just another manipulation? She didn't know what to believe anymore. Everything felt tainted, broken beyond repair. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. She looked up, her heart sinking as Noah stepped into the room. His face was pale, his eyes swollen from sleepless nights. He looked like a ghost of the man she once loved. "I made some dinner. If you're hungry," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Amelia looked away. The thought of eating made her stomach turn. "I'm not hungry." Noah hesitated, his shoulders sagging. "Okay, I'll just leave it on the table in case you change your mind." He turned to leave, his hand on the doorknob, but stopped. "Amelia, I miss you. I miss us." Amelia's chest tightened, her eyes stinging with tears. "You should have thought about that before you destroyed us." Noah's face crumpled, his pain evident. "I know, and I hate myself for it. I hate what I did to you, to us. But I can't change the past. All I can do is try to be better. If you'll let me." Amelia closed her eyes, her heart aching. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Noah. I don't know if I even want to try." Noah's voice broke. "I understand, but I'm not giving up, not on us." Not until you tell me there's no hope left. Amelia didn't respond, her silence louder than any words. Noah stood there for a moment before walking away, his footsteps heavy. Amelia listened as he descended the stairs, the sound echoing through the empty house. She buried her face in her hands, her tears soaking her palms. She wanted to hate him, to erase him from her heart. But the love wouldn't die, no matter how. Hard she tried to kill it, and that was the cruelest betrayal of all. Chapter 28. Truths unspoken. The next day, Amelia stood outside Lena's office building, her heart pounding. She didn't know why she was here, why she felt the need to confront her. Maybe she needed to see the woman who ruined her life, to face the reality of Noah's lies. She took a deep breath and walked inside, her hands trembling as she approached. The receptionist. "I'm here to see Lena Carter." The receptionist looked up, her eyes widening. "Oh, she's not in today. Took a leave of absence." Amelia's brow furrowed. "Do you know when she'll be back?" The receptionist shook her head. "She didn't say. Just left a message with HR last week." Amelia's heart skipped a beat. Last week? Right after she confronted Noah? She turned and walked out of the building, her mind racing. Was Lena running away? Was she hiding something more? A surge of anger fueled her steps as she headed to her car. She wasn't done yet. She needed answers, and she would get them, no matter what it took. Chapter 29. Hidden shadows. Noah paced the living room, his anxiety mounting. Amelia had been gone for hours, and she wasn't answering his calls. He tried to stay calm, but his mind raced with possibilities. What if she left him? What if she was meeting with a lawyer? His phone buzzed, and relief washed over him as he saw her name. He answered quickly, his voice strained. "Amelia? Where are you?" Her tone was cold. "We need to talk." Noah's stomach dropped. "Okay. About what?" There was a pause, her silence heavy. "About Lena. About why she left her job and what she's hiding from me." Noah's blood ran cold. I don't know what you mean." Amelia's voice was sharp. "Don't lie to me, Noah, not again. I went to her office today. She's gone. Disappeared right after I found out about the affair. So tell me, what else are you hiding?" Noah's heart pounded, panic setting in. He thought it was over, that the truth was out. But there was more, and he knew it was only a matter of time before she uncovered everything. His voice shook. "Amelia, please. I can explain." Amelia's laugh was bitter. "That's what you said before, and all you did was lie. I'm done listening to your excuses. I want the truth. All of it." Noah's mouth went dry, his mind spinning. He knew he couldn't hide anymore. But if she knew the whole truth, if she found out what really happened, she'd never forgive him. Noah stared at his phone, the silence after Amelia's call hanging like a suffocating fog. He wasn't sure if he was relieved or terrified. She was coming home. The truth was coming. Whether he was ready for it or not, he thought he had covered. His tracks protected her from the worst of it. But the walls were closing in and he couldn't keep running. He sat on the couch, his hands clenched into fists, his heart racing. He replayed every moment, the lies, the half-truths, the secrets he thought he had buried. He had been so damn sure he could keep it all together, but now everything was falling apart. Amelia deserved the truth, even if it destroyed them both. His phone buzzed again. It was a message from Lena. "We need to talk. Call me." Noah's stomach churned. Lena had been the catalyst, the temptation he couldn't resist, but now it felt like she was the last person he wanted to deal with. He couldn't think about Lena right now. Amelia was the one who mattered. He had to face her, tell her everything, and pray she would somehow find a way to forgive him. The door creaked open, and Amelia stepped inside, her face pale, her eyes red from lack of sleep. Noah could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. She didn't say a word, just walked past him and into the kitchen. He followed her, his voice barely a whisper. "Amelia." She turned to face him, her gaze piercing. "I want answers, Noah. I don't want excuses. No more dancing around the truth." Noah nodded, swallowing hard. He couldn't avoid it any longer. "I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner." Amelia's lips pressed into a thin line. "Noah, you've been lying to me for months. I found out about the affair, and now you're telling me there's more. What else? What else could there possibly be?" Noah took a shaky breath, his thoughts swirling. I got involved with Lena in ways I shouldn't have, but it wasn't just that. There are things she's done, things I've been involved in, things that could hurt both of us." He looked at her, his voice pleading. "I didn't want to drag you into it, Amelia. I didn't want you to know." Amelia stared at him, her face unreadable. "What do you mean by things that could hurt both of us? What could be worse than what you've already done?" He clenched his fists, his mind spinning. "There are people, Amelia, people I've been working with who have their own agendas. Lena's one of them, but there's more. It's not just about cheating, it's about choices I made, mistakes I can't undo." Amelia stepped back, her hand going to her mouth, a soft gasp escaping her lips. "What do you mean? Who else is involved?" Noah hesitated, his throat tight. "I was trying to protect you from it, from what I've been a part of. But now you're going to find out anyway." A moment of silence passed between them, the weight of his words sinking in. Amelia's eyes were wide, her lips trembling with the force of her emotions. "Tell me everything. Right now. I deserve to know. No more half-truths." Noah closed his eyes, his body sagging under the pressure. He had never felt so small, so utterly broken. "I didn't just have an affair, Amelia. Lena's involved. In a much bigger situation. There's a financial deal, one I got tangled up in, a deal that could ruin both of us if it goes public. I didn't want to bring you into it. I thought I could fix it before you ever knew." Amelia's voice was barely a whisper. "And you thought, what? That I'd never find out? That this wouldn't destroy everything?" Noah's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I could protect you from it. I thought maybe if I kept it all hidden, you wouldn't have to suffer for my mistakes." Amelia turned away, her shoulders shaking with emotion. "How could you think that? How could you think keeping all of this from me was the answer? You've made everything worse. You've lied and cheated, and now you're telling me there's more. There's so much more." Noah's heart twisted as he watched her, his mind flooded with regret. "I never meant for it to get this far. I never wanted to hurt you, but I've been so afraid of losing you, of losing everything I've worked for. And now I don't know how to make it right." Amelia's voice cracked as she turned to face him. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Noah. I don't know if I even want to try." His heart clenched painfully in his chest. "Please, don't give up on me. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll fix it. I'll fix everything." Amelia took a step back, her eyes hard. "You can't fix this, Noah. You can't fix what you've broken." There was a long pause, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched out, thick and suffocating. Amelia's gaze softened, just a fraction, but it was enough for Noah to see the tiniest flicker of hope. She looked at him, her voice barely audible. "I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know if I can stay, but I need time. I need space to figure out if I can ever trust you again." The weeks after Amelia left were a blur. Noah tried to keep busy, to occupy his mind with work, with anything that might distract him from the relentless pull of regret that gnawed at him. Every night, He sat in the silence of their home. The absence of Amelia, a constant reminder of how far he had fallen. His phone buzzed again. It was another message from Lena. He'd been ignoring her calls, the guilt of his actions still too fresh to confront her. But this time, something in the message made him hesitate. I need to see you. I'm not sure how much longer I can keep. This from you. Noah's hands shook as he typed a quick reply. I don't think it's a good idea to meet right now. I need to focus on fixing things with Amelia. There was a long pause before Lena responded. I know, but this can't wait. We're in too deep now. I'm scared, Noah. His heart pounded as he stared at the screen. The last thing he wanted was to dive deeper into whatever mess Lena had pulled him into. But the words, we're in too deep now, stuck with him. It wasn't just about him and Amelia anymore. There were people involved, and people had already begun to get hurt. But before he could respond, the doorbell rang. His pulse quickened as he stood up, unsure who to expect. When he opened the door, his breath caught in his throat. Standing there was Lena, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. You shouldn't be here, Noah whispered, stepping aside to let her in. Lena pushed past him, her gaze darting nervously around the room. I don't have much time. I'm in trouble, Noah. The people I've been involved with, they're starting to notice I'm backing out. They know I'm talking to you, and they don't like it. Noah closed the door and turned to her, his mind racing. What are you talking about? Who are these people? She grabbed his arm, her fingers cold and trembling. I didn't want to drag you into this, but you're already involved. You can't back out now. They're watching you, watching both of us. Noah felt the weight of her words settle over him like a storm cloud. What exactly are you involved in, Lena? Who are these people? Lena took a deep breath, her voice shaky, but resolute. It's bigger than I thought, Noah. I thought I was just helping with a small business deal, but it's criminal. Money laundering, illegal contracts, things that could destroy lives. And now I can't get out. I thought you could help me, but you've got your own mess with Amelia. And I think it's too late for both of us. Noah's stomach churned. What have we done? Lena's eyes filled with tears. I never meant for it to go this far. I thought we could just help with a little financial stuff, make some extra cash, and be done with it. But I've made too many enemies now. And you, being involved with me even for a short time, you're a target too. Noah took a step back, his mind spinning. So you brought this into my life. You dragged me into something I can't undo. I didn't ask for this. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. Lena looked at him, her gaze desperate. You can't walk away. Noah, not now. If you do, they'll come after you. They'll come after Amelia. Noah's blood ran cold. What do you mean? What does Amelia have to do with this? Lena paused, her lips trembling as she searched his eyes. I don't know how much she knows, but she's tied to this now. They're watching her too. She's been in the crosshairs since you got involved with me. If you want to protect her, if you want to protect both of you, you need to help me. Noah felt a cold wave of panic wash over him. He had tried so hard to shield Amelia from everything. The lies, the betrayal, the mess he'd gotten himself into. And now it was worse. Now the danger wasn't just to him, it was to her. Tell me what to do, Noah whispered, his voice shaking. Lena met his eyes, the desperation clear in her face. You have to get out of this. We need to go to the authorities. If we don't, they'll make sure we never get the chance to leave. They'll destroy us, Noah. And Amelia, she'll be collateral damage. Noah stood in the middle of the living room, the weight of the decision pressing on him like 1,000 tons of bricks. He had spent so long trying to fix things with Amelia, trying to make up for his mistakes. But now everything he had built was crumbling again. And this time, it wasn't just about his marriage. It was about survival. His mind raced, trying to piece together the tangled web he was caught in. Going to the authorities would mean exposing everything he had tried to bury. It would mean tearing down everything he had left, not just with Amelia, but with the life he had tried to protect. But if he didn't act, the consequences would be far worse. The people Lena had gotten him involved with, whoever they were, weren't going to stop. "I don't know if I can trust you anymore, Lena," Noah said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can trust anyone, but I have to protect Amelia." The days that followed were suffocating, each one blending into the next. Noah's nights were restless, consumed with thoughts of Amelia and the ever-growing sense of danger that surrounded him. He hadn't heard from her, and each silence felt like a weight pressing down on him. He knew he needed to face the consequences, but the fear of what might happen if he did was paralyzing. Lena, too, seemed to be unraveling. Her nerves were frayed, her eyes constantly scanning the room, her every movement tense. The manila envelope in her hand was the only thing that seemed to keep her grounded. Inside were the names of people involved in the money laundering scheme, names that Noah had never heard before, but that now felt like a noose around his neck. "I don't know how long we have," Lena whispered one evening, pacing in his living room. "They're on to me, and it won't be long before they start coming after you. After both of us." Noah couldn't keep up with the shifting weight of the situation. He had always thought that things could be fixed, that he could find a way to make everything right again. But now, as the walls closed in, he wondered if it was too late to escape the mess he had stepped into. The sound of his phone buzzing snapped him from his thoughts. It was a text from Amelia. "I need to see you." His chest tightened. He hadn't expected her to reach out. After everything, after the lies, the betrayal, she still wanted to talk. But could he trust her? Could he be honest with her, even after everything he had done? "I have to meet her," Noah said, his voice a mixture of determination and fear. Lena stopped pacing and looked at him, her eyes full of warning. "You can't go alone, Noah. If she's involved in this, if she knows anything about what's been happening, she's a target too. You can't risk it." Noah stared at her, torn. "What do you want me to do? Hide? Stay here with you while everything crumbles around me?" Lena's face softened, but there was no comfort in her eyes. "I'm trying to help you, Noah. But you have to trust me. If you don't make a move soon, everything will fall apart." He didn't respond, not because he didn't want to, but because the gravity of the situation was sinking in. There was no turning back. His marriage, his future, his safety, all of it was in jeopardy. With one last look at Lena, he grabbed his coat and walked out the door. Chapter 34. The meeting Amelia sat at the corner table of the small cafe, her back to the window, her posture stiff. Noah hadn't seen her like this before, so distant, so closed off. She looked like a stranger, someone he once knew but had no real understanding of anymore. He approached cautiously, unsure of what to expect. When she looked up and met his eyes, there was no warmth in her gaze, just the cold distance he had come to expect. "You wanted to see me?" Noah said, his voice tentative. Amelia nodded slowly, pushing the cup of untouched coffee in front of her. "I need answers, Noah. I need to understand what's going on, what you've been involved in, and I need to know if you've been lying to me this whole time." The words hit Noah like a slap to the face. He had spent weeks trying to figure out how to protect her, trying to fix the mess he had made, but here she was, asking the questions he didn't have answers to. "I never meant for any of this to happen, Amelia," Noah began, his voice breaking as he sat across from her. "I made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But I never wanted to hurt you." Her eyes narrowed. "Then why did you keep secrets from me, Noah? Why didn't you tell me what was going on? Why did you let me keep living this lie while you were involved? With things that could ruin us both?" The accusation stung, but it was true. He had kept things from her, thinking he could protect her, but now he saw how much worse that had made everything. The lies, the silence. They had done nothing but build a wall between them. A wall that was impossible to tear down. "I didn't want to drag you into it," Noah said, his voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want to risk you getting hurt." Amelia shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. "You didn't think I deserved to know? You didn't think I deserved a chance to make a choice?" The anger in her voice was justified, but Noah couldn't find the words to explain himself, to make it right. He had failed her in every way imaginable, and no apology, no excuse could undo the damage he had caused. "I'm sorry, Amelia," he said, the words feeling hollow even as he said them. "I never should have kept you in the dark. I never should have made decisions without you." Amelia didn't respond. She simply stared at him, her face a mask of pain and confusion. "I don't know what to do with any of this, Noah. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I can trust you again." Noah felt his chest tighten. "Please, Amelia, I'll do anything. I'll fix this. I'll tell you everything. Just don't walk away. Not like this." Her gaze softened for a brief moment. The message from Lena echoed in Noah's mind, each word a hammer striking the fragile walls of his resolve. They knew. Whoever they were, it didn't matter anymore. The game had changed, and Noah was no longer sure who the enemy was or where the line between friend and foe had blurred. He didn't have time to process it all. Amelia's face, the tear-streaked sorrow in her eyes, still lingered in his thoughts. But Lena's message was a harsh reality, demanding immediate action. Noah stood up from the cafe table, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. He hadn't expected things to spiral out of control so fast, but there was no denying it. The lies, the secrets, the shady dealings, they had all led to this point. He walked to his car with a sense of urgency, knowing that time was no longer a luxury he had. The people coming for him, whoever they were, would not hesitate. He wasn't sure what making a choice meant exactly, but he knew one thing for certain. The time for half measures and evasions was over. As he slid into the driver's seat, his phone buzzed again. It was Amelia. "We need to talk." Noah's stomach twisted. She didn't say much more, but that one line spoke volumes. She needed answers. She needed closure, even if she wasn't sure she wanted to hear what he had to say. But then there was Lena. He couldn't ignore Lena either. Her involvement in everything, the file with names, the threats looming on both their futures. He couldn't let her slip away into the shadows just because he was tangled in his emotions. Amelia's pain was real, but Lena had already warned him. She had given him a glimpse of the larger danger, the one that reached beyond the personal betrayal. He was caught between two worlds, each pulling him in a different direction. Chapter Sut, the escape route. Noah's fingers tightened around the steering wheel as he drove toward Lena's place. He had to make a decision. Now. Amelia deserved the truth, but the people Lena had warned him about weren't waiting for his soul-searching. They had already made their move. Lena was the one who could help him, but she, too, was tangled in a web of lies. When he arrived at Lena's, she was waiting for him outside, pacing, her face a portrait of anxiety. The moment she saw him, her eyes softened, but only for a split second before the tension returned. "You're late," she said, her voice flat, but still filled with that underlying edge of urgency. "Did you talk to her?" Noah nodded, running a hand through his hair. "She's not sure she can forgive me. Not sure she can trust me again. And I understand that. But there's more to it than just that. There's something much bigger coming. For both of us." Lena's expression hardened, and she moved closer. "They're here, and you don't get to keep playing the nice guy while the clock's ticking. Do you understand that? You're not just in danger anymore. We both are. I warned you. Now, it's time to act. Noah swallowed hard, the reality of it finally hitting him. The betrayal, the lies, the web that had been spun so carefully around him. What are we supposed to do? Lena met his gaze, her eyes burning with intensity. You have one choice, Noah. You fight. You fight back, and you do whatever it takes to get out of this, or you disappear. Her words hung in the air, too, heavy for him to fully comprehend. Disappear? Leave everything behind? But as the moments stretched on, Noah realized there was no other option. He couldn't run from the choices he'd made. He couldn't undo the hurt he'd caused, especially to Amelia. But there was no going back now. Chapter 38. The Consequence of Silence. Noah didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat in the dim light of his apartment, staring at the phone in his hand, the messages from Amelia and Lena taunting him with their unanswered questions. He had to make a decision. Now. And yet something inside him kept hesitating. The thought of facing Amelia again, seeing the hurt in her eyes, almost paralyzed him. He had wronged her, and no amount of apologies would fix the damage he had done. It felt like a cruel irony. He had been running from the truth for so long, but now it seemed like the truth was the one thing he couldn't escape. But there was no time left to wonder about what could have been. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call from an unknown number. Noah, a gruff voice said on the other end. You think you can hide? You think you can keep running from this? You're already in too deep. It's time to pay the price. His heart skipped a beat. The voice was unfamiliar, but the threat was unmistakable. He was being hunted now, and there was nowhere left to hide. Chapter 39. The Final Choice. Noah had spent the better part of his life avoiding confrontation, running from difficult decisions, hoping the truth would somehow make itself known without him having to deal with the fallout. But as the days dragged on, he realized that there was no way to outrun the consequences of his actions any longer. Noah stood in front of Amelia's apartment door, his hand hovering over the doorbell. He felt the weight of his decision pressing on him, the culmination of every lie, every secret, every moment he had hesitated in the past weeks. Inside, Amelia was waiting. He could hear the faint hum of the air conditioner, the rustling of her movements as she paced, the sound of a life being held together by a thread. He pressed the doorbell. The seconds felt like hours. When Amelia opened the door, her expression was guarded, a mask she wore too often in the last few days. Her eyes were tired, red from too many nights without sleep. But there was something else, too, a flicker of hope that Noah wasn't sure he deserved to see. He tried to summon the courage to say something, anything, to bridge the chasm between them. But all he could do was stare. You came, she said, her voice soft but with an edge of something more. I wasn't sure you would. Noah swallowed hard. I owe you an explanation. I don't know if it'll make anything better, but I need you to hear me out. Amelia nodded, stepping aside to let him in. The apartment was quiet, almost too quiet, as if the air itself was holding its breath, waiting for the storm to come. They sat across from each other on the couch, the space between them a chasm Noah didn't know how to bridge. The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken words, unresolved tension, and old wounds. You've been keeping secrets, Amelia said, her voice cracking slightly. Secrets that I never even had a chance to uncover until it was too late. Noah closed his eyes, trying to steady himself. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted any of this to happen. But it did, Noah, she replied, her voice sharper now. You think I didn't see it? The lies, the distance, the way you started pulling away before I even had a chance to ask why? You've been living in a world of your own, making decisions without me, and I had no idea. He stopped, not knowing how to finish the sentence. How could he explain the guilt, the confusion, the fear that had paralyzed him for so long? How could he tell her he hadn't even been sure who he was anymore, let alone who he could be with her? "Do you love me?" she asked suddenly, her voice quiet but cutting through the room like a knife. "Do you love me enough to fix this? To really fix it?" The question hit him like a punch to the gut. He had never really thought about love that way before, never had to. It had always been so easy, so comfortable, until it wasn't. Until the weight of his choices became too much to bear. "I do love you," Noah finally said, his voice breaking. "But love isn't enough. Not when you've already betrayed someone's trust. Not when you've broken something that can't be put back together." Amelia's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but her lips pressed into a thin line. "So what now? Do we just throw it all away? Is that what you're saying?" "No," he said quickly, standing up and pacing the room. "No, I'm not saying that. But I don't know if we can come back from this. I don't know if we can undo what's been done." She shook her head slowly. "Then what was it all for, Noah? What was this, us, if we can't fix it? If we can't face the truth together?" The bitterness in her voice was almost too much to bear. Noah wanted to reach out, to take her hand, to make everything right. But the reality was that things were broken in ways he couldn't fix with a few words. "I don't know," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I wish I knew." Chapter 41. The Third Path. The days following the confrontation with Amelia were a blur of sleepless nights, strained conversations, and a constant sense of being pulled in a dozen directions at once. Noah tried to reach out to Lena, but the messages went unanswered. He had no idea where she was, what she was doing, or if he'd even see her again. Everything felt like it was falling apart. Too many things to repair, too many pieces scattered beyond reach. Amelia had pulled away, and while there was still a part of her that seemed to want to try, there was another part, one that feared. The wounds between them were too deep to ever heal. In the midst of it all, Noah received another call. This time it was from a number he didn't recognize, but the voice on the other end was familiar. "It's Lena," she said, her voice low and urgent. "You need to listen. You have one chance left to fix this." Noah's heart skipped a beat. He glanced at his phone, realizing the gravity of the situation. "What do you mean? What's happening?" "I've been trying to keep you safe, Noah. But it's not just about you anymore. Amelia's in danger. You need to get her out of there. Now." Noah felt the ground beneath him shift. This was bigger than anything he could have anticipated. "What do you mean? Who's after her?" "There's more to the people behind all this," Lena's voice continued, strained. "The betrayal you've been caught in, it's part of something much bigger." Noah's chest tightened as he read the message from Lena. "They've taken her." The words echoed in his mind, cold and unforgiving. But there was no time to waste. His body moved before his mind could catch up. He grabbed his jacket, rushed out of the apartment, and slammed the door behind him. As he hurried through the streets, his mind raced with 1,000 possibilities. Who had taken Amelia? Why? And more importantly, what could he do to get her back? He had been so focused on the betrayal, so consumed by his own guilt, that he had completely missed the larger web of deceit and danger closing in around them both. He pulled out his phone and called Lena again. This time, she picked up immediately. "You need to tell me where she is," Noah said, his voice taut with urgency. "Lena, I can't wait. She's gone." There was a long pause before Lena responded, her voice filled with a quiet resolve. "I'm trying to track them, but you need to listen to me. Amelia's involvement is no accident. She got caught up in something she shouldn't have, something she didn't even know about." and now they're using her to get to me. Noah's stomach turned. Who are they, Lena? What the hell is going on? You don't understand the full scope of this, Noah, Lena continued, her voice steady despite the tension. It's bigger than you think. Amelia, she's been in the crosshairs of some very dangerous people for a while now. People with a lot of money and power. And now that they've taken her, they're demanding something from me. Noah's grip on the phone tightened. What do they want from you? Lena hesitated. They want information. They think I have. Access to something they need, something I don't even fully understand yet. They'll use Amelia to get it, to force my hand. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. Amelia had been dragged into this mess because of Lena's involvement, because of her dangerous secrets. The woman he had once thought he could trust was now the center of a much darker conspiracy. How do I get her back? Noah's voice was raw, desperate. You need to trust me, Lena said quietly. Meet me at the old warehouse on Maple Street. It's the only place I can get to safely. I'll have answers there. But you need to move quickly. You're running out of time. Without another word, she hung up. Noah's heart raced as he ran toward his car. He knew the stakes had just gotten higher. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about survival, and he had no idea how far this would go or what he would have to sacrifice to get Amelia back. Chapter 44. The Warehouse. The warehouse on Maple Street loomed ahead, its rusty steel doors and shattered windows casting a long shadow over the street. Noah parked his car a few blocks away, his pulse hammering in his ears. He had been to places like this before, dilapidated, forgotten corners of the city where secrets festered and danger thrived in the dark. As he approached the entrance, a voice called out from the shadows, "Noah!" He spun around, his hand instinctively, reaching for the gun he kept at his side. But it wasn't Lena who had spoken. It was another voice, a man's voice. Noah's breath caught in his throat. Out of the shadows stepped a tall, broad-shouldered figure, Elliot Vance, the same man who had been manipulating everything from the shadows, the same man who had been pulling the strings all along. Vance, Noah growled, taking a step back. What the hell is going on? Where's Amelia? Vance smiled, but it wasn't a smile that reassured Noah. It was cold, calculating. Amelia is fine, for now. But if you want to keep her that way, you'll do exactly what I say. Let her go, Noah demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. You've already made your point. Now let her go. Vance shook his head slowly. You don't get it, do you? She's not the one you should be worried about. She's just leverage. The real question is, how much are you willing to lose to save her? Noah's stomach dropped. This was it. The moment where everything he had fought for, everything he had tried to protect, could be lost forever. He had no idea what Vance wanted from him, but he knew it wasn't going to be easy. What do you want from me? Noah asked, his voice low, his gaze never leaving Vance's. Vance stepped closer, his expression unreadable. You're smarter than this, Noah. You know what I want. The same thing I've always wanted. Control. Information. And now you've put yourself in the perfect position to give it to me. All I need is your cooperation. Give me what I want, and Amelia walks away. Noah felt the weight of his options crash down on him. He could surrender, give Vance what he wanted, and hope for Amelia's safe return. Or he could risk everything. His life, her life, the fragile thread that held them together, and try to fight back. But as Vance's gaze never wavered, Noah knew this wasn't just a game anymore. This was the breaking point, the moment where choices had consequences he couldn't fully anticipate. Noah's mind raced as he stood in front of Vance. Amelia's life hung in the balance, and he was caught between doing what Vance demanded or finding another way to save her without losing himself in the process. I won't make deals with you, Noah finally said, his voice shaking with resolve. "If you want to hurt Amelia, you'll have to do it through me." Vance chuckled softly, his eyes narrowing. "You're stronger than I gave you credit for, but strength doesn't always win, Noah. Sometimes it's about making the right choice." Noah knew there was no easy way out of this. The stakes had been raised too high, the choices too dangerous. He had already lost so much, but now, standing face to face with Vance, he had to decide. What was he willing to risk? And could he ever truly save Amelia without losing everything in the process? The silence between them stretched as Vance waited for an answer. Noah's heart raced, each second a moment closer to an unknown end. He took a deep breath, the weight of his decision settling over him. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect her." But the question remained. Would it be enough?